The Rise of Skywalker was one of the most disappointing Star Wars sequels of the franchise by making the character Rey the granddaughter of Palpatine. In today's episode, we're going to explore other theories about Rey's parentage and what that would have meant for the franchise. Welcome to Fandom Pending. I'm your host, Michaela. Thank you for tuning in today. Today's fandom is Star Wars. With the release of The Force Awakens in 2015, many people were infatuated with Rey, and the question specifically, who are her parents? Many theories have traveled across the internet, from her being the descendant of Obi-Wan to the daughter of Luke Skywalker. Still, her messy lineage from coming from two nobodies was then retconned into her being the granddaughter of Palpatine. When it was revealed in The Last Jedi that Rey came from two nobodies that sold her for drinking money on Jakku, the revelation was kind of disappointing because it seemed that The Force Awakens was setting up Rey to be the descendant of a major Star Wars character. After The Last Jedi came out, I slowly accepted the fact that Rey came from two nobodies, and the reasoning behind the decision made a lot of sense. So, Kylo Ren comes from a long line of heroes. His grandmother was a galactic senator, his grandfather was a general and Jedi in the Clone Wars, his parents led the rebellion against the Empire, and his uncle is the Luke Skywalker, a Jedi. There is no reason for Kylo Ren to be a villain, yet he is. Rey, on the other hand, has a villain origin story. Rey was abandoned by her parents at a young age. She had to fend for herself growing up, and you would think a character like Rey would probably be a villain, but she's not. She's the hero of this trilogy. And you could say because Rey is a Palpatine, it also kind of mirrors the fact that instead of coming from nothing, she comes from an evil Sith Lord. But this really gave me whiplash to kind of change Rey's parentage. The sequel trilogy is over and done with. Rey's a Palpatine, and that's canon. And I don't think anything is going to be retconned again, but I thought it would be fun to go through all the possible parents for Rey and see what people theorized back then, including myself. Let's start off with the theory that everyone thought The Force Awakens would lead to, Rey being the daughter of Han and Leia. A lot of fans, including myself, thought that the sequel trilogy was going to take after the extended universe books that focused on Leia and Han's kids, Jacen, Jaina, and Anakin. If you don't know their full story, that's okay. All you need to know is that Han and Leia had twins, Jacen and Jaina, who were trained by Luke at his new Jedi temple. Jacen, the brother, turns to the dark side, and Jaina ultimately defeats him. There's a little more to it than that, but that's the basic gist. I think the most popular theory was that Rey was Kylo Ren's sister, that Han and Leia hid away on Jakku, so her brother wouldn't be able to find her. This would also explain why Han and Leia weren't together in The Force Awakens, and why the relationship was strained. I think this would also explain why Kylo Ren was so obsessed with finding Rey in The Force Awakens, because the First Order is always referring to Rey as the girl, and Kylo Ren snaps when he first hears about a girl with BB-8 and Han Solo. When Rey, Finn, and Chewbacca make it back to the Resistance base, Rey and Leia hug upon seeing each other even though they never met. However, they both sensed each other's sadness for Han through the Force. The only reason this theory doesn't make sense is because Leia and Han abandoned their child on Jakku. That doesn't really quite make sense, but I guess they know a backwater planet is a for sure place where Kylo Ren won't find his sister. But at least Obi-Wan left Luke with his family while taking him to Tatooine, and Obi-Wan was constantly watching over Luke, so it's a bit different. Another popular theory was that Rey was a descendant of Obi-Wan, or more specifically his granddaughter. Think about it, it would be very cool if the grandkids of Anakin and Obi-Wan were against each other for the sequel trilogy and in the end were able to come together. That's the only reason I like this theory. Other than that, it doesn't really quite make sense. A popular Star Wars The Clone Wars theory is that the character of Korkie Kryze is Satine and Obi-Wan's son. Korkie never died on screen, I don't think, so he could be Rey's dad. Or maybe they had a secret kid before Satine died, who knows. Also, when Rey had the vision from Luke Skywalker, we can hear Obi-Wan's voice. Rey being a descendant of Obi-Wan would be very interesting, solely on the fact that she's up against Anakin's grandson, and both of their lineage coming together in peace. Star Wars Rebels was an animated series that came out a year before The Force Awakens. In the show, there are two characters, Ezra, a Force-sensitive teen being trained as a Jedi, and Sabine, a Mandalorian. The ages really added up for the two of them being Rey's parents, but Rey doesn't look anything like them, unfortunately. I also can't imagine these two characters abandoning their child on Jakku. Also, if Sabine and Ezra were revealed to be Rey's parents, the majority of the fan base isn't going to know who they are because they're not watching a kids' cartoon, Star Wars Rebels. However, it would have been cool for Ezra and Sabine to have been her parents now that it's revealed that Sabine is also Force sensitive. I was one of those people on the internet reading a bunch of articles on who might be Rey's parents. An insane theory I came across that I really love is Rey being a clone made from the hand Luke lost in his Cloud City fight against Darth Vader. I know this sounds insane, but it kind of makes sense and gives a reason as to why Rey is so powerful without any traditional training. This can also connect to how Maz got Luke's lightsaber, which he also lost after that fight because we never found out how Maz got that lightsaber. Maybe the First Order were the ones who made Rey, and some Resistance fighters found out about the secret Luke clone, and a group was sent to rescue her, which they did. And maybe this group was assigned to take her somewhere where the First Order wouldn't find her, and that just happened to be Jakku. There are so many similarities between Luke and Rey's story, so another theory that's probably not too far off is Rey being the daughter of Luke Skywalker. Rey and Luke both grew up on a desert planet and are strong with the Force and are trying to get a droid with something special to the Rebels, and they're both gifted pilots, etc., etc. Rey being Luke's daughter also gives a reason as to why Kylo Ren was so interested in Rey. Also, Anakin slash Luke's lightsaber was calling to Rey. Why would the lightsaber be calling to Rey if she wasn't related to them? I could imagine that after Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren destroyed Luke's Jedi temple, Rey, being Luke's daughter, was the only one who survived. Luke was probably so ashamed of failing Rey as a dad and sent her to Jakku. Maybe Leia and Han knew about their niece was somewhere out there, but they didn't know where. And and I think Kylo Ren also kind of knew that he had his cousin out there somewhere, but he didn't really know, but he could kind of feel it in the Force, and that's why he was so preoccupied with finding her. Another theory I also like is Rey being a student from Luke's Jedi Temple. This is one of my favorite theories. When Kylo Ren turned to the dark side, he and the Knights of Ren destroyed the Jedi Temple and killed all of Luke's students. What if Rey was one of Luke's students that survived? Maybe when the massacre was going on at the Jedi Temple, someone probably rescued Rey and dropped her off on Jakku. Maybe one of the Knights of Ren rescued Rey, which is probably why a lot of care didn't go into which planet she was left on. If Rey was a student of Luke's, this would explain why she's able to harness the Force. Yes, she probably has amnesia, but her connection to the Force is leading her to uncover the past. The Force Awakens came out in 2015, and just 1 year later, Star Wars: A Rogue One Story was released. This was the first Star Wars movie not to be part of the main Skywalker saga, and when the first trailer came out, I was confused on how this connected to the main timeline. As it turns out, Rogue One takes place before A New Hope and follows a young woman named Jyn Erso. I thought the only reason they're making this movie is because this young woman, Jyn, is going to be Rey's mom. The only evidence I had was her age range being perfect to Rey's mom and also having a British accent. However, if you've seen the film, you know that Jyn Erso dies at the end, so she can't possibly be Rey's mom. It's a nice little theory that's really dated, but it would have really been cool to have a whole Star Wars movie dedicated to Rey's parents. This last and final theory is my absolute favorite. It comes from the channel The Super Carlin Bros. I really love this theory and it makes the most sense while still being canon to Rey being a Palpatine. So Rey's grandfather is a Palpatine, and we know this from the Rise of Skywalker that he has a clone slash son, but we don't know who her mom is. What if Rey's mom was Omega from the Bad Batch? I have not seen The Bad Batch season 2 or 3, so I don't know if this theory sucks or even if it matches up with the show. But a popular Bad Batch theory is that Omega is Force sensitive, and that's why she's so important. A Force sensitive Omega and the son of Palpatine having a kid together would explain why Rey has the skills she has. Rey would have clone DNA in her, which would explain why she's able to pilot the Millennium Falcon, among other things. Rey's son probably ran away and met Omega, and they bonded over the fact that they're clones, among other things, and fell in love and had Rey. I just think this is the most perfect theory that fits into the Star Wars canon because, let's face it, they're not going to retcon or erase any of the Star Wars sequels. The only thing that they can do is justify the decisions the sequel trilogy made. Please share your thoughts on today's episode and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any suggestions on what fandom or topic I should talk about, leave a comment or message me on Instagram at fandompending. Thank you for joining me today and may the Force be with you.